Dump, where we run through the hottest topics in the Lewis County news scene and discuss. I'm local man Aaron VanTuyl, joined today by Chronicle editor-in-chief Eric Schwartz, CT Publishing Vice President Franklin Taylor, and Chronicle reporter Isabel Vander Stoep. And we're joined in spirit, as always, by our phenomenal sponsors, Summit Funding and The Roof Doctor.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. That's how you read the intro, Isabel.
I'm sorry that I'm not as perfect as Aaron.
We are once again on the 121st episode.
Just running in place here.
Did a little checking, and we might be one or two off. Math,
maybe
not my strong suit.
Before we get into news, I wanted to share a little bit of in-house stuff. Jared Wenzelberger, our photographer, has been promoted to CT Publishing regional photo editor, and everyone on Facebook is so happy about it.
Yeah, I didn't see one person upset. I thought somebody would be mad. I've seen people
you didn't get me leaving
before.
an angry face emoji on there?
No, that's so well deserved. That man is everywhere. All the comments, you could just, everyone can see his hard work, so it's not just us.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
That was nice to see.
You got it. Because he works on the weekends. I mean, he's at all the sporting events, all the parades, all the festivals. He's our most visible employee for sure.
Yeah, he is. He's out there. He out there.
Not a great guest on the podcast. That's one shot I'll give him. But he was there with us in the early days when no one else would even come out in public or into the building. So
after he stopped appearing, one of my buddies on the east side of the state that listens was like, "When are you guys bringing back Nightcrawler? He was hilarious."
He wasn't that bad. He was just funny.
How are you guys as Halloweens?
Good. We trick-or-treated right out back behind the Chronicle here. Edison District, I believe.
There was a big old party in Winlock. It was called Egg-O-Lantern, and they dressed up the egg like a jack-o'-lantern, and we got a lot of photos, and they very kindly invited us out to cover it. It sounded like a really fun time.
That's awesome.
Cool.
I was at the Kiddin' Around Carnival.
Oh, very cool.
That was really fun.
Was that in the white space?
Yep,
downtown?
in the white space, downtown Centralia.
Nice.
That was really fun. They had a bouncy house, and
it was so successful, I wouldn't go in there. There's just too many people in there when I walked by.
A lot of
everybody
people
was enjoying themselves.
It was packed.
Like. And the photos that Jared took there looked great as well.
Yeah.
Best costume, anybody?
My kid, she was the
Oh,
most
come on.
adorable cow in the
disgusting.
world. Look at the comments on my
It was
wife's
not.
Facebook
It was
post.
not the best costume.
No, I did. I saw one person just in a retro cardboard box robot.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Mine, as I said at the news meeting this morning, was the 3 or 4 year old girl that was being wheeled around by her dad, who was pushing a hand truck with a pint-sized coffin on it, and she would just stand in the coffin holding flowers and closing her eyes like she was dead, and he would wheel her up to the door and then knock, and she would come alive for the candy and then step back in.
I love that.
Yeah, we followed them for a while.
That is awesome.
I'm going to show you guys a photo I was sent.
You're going to show it
Very
to all the
podcast
listeners.
friendly. What am I looking at there?
It's a famous SNL sketch.
And now
See where the
Aaron
box is
is
placed?
trimming his mustache.
Oh, yeah, I see it now. That's fine.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
That means nothing to me.
That's pretty fantastic.
It's
Oh,
did you see it?
no, I got
The
it.
dick in the box, folks.
Yeah.
It was the dick in the box. Pretty
Of
good.
course you saw that, and we're
Pretty good
like,
stuff.
I'm gonna
that's the
save this
funniest
to
thing
my
I've
phone.
ever seen.
We're gonna kick off the podcast with
thought
it.
it was good.
So funny, 15 years ago
Yeah, it's not like it was my costume.
for a week.
When was the last time you dressed up?
Okay, that was
as
long.
anything.
That was funnier longer than a week.
That's a good question. I don't know.
What were your kids? What were your kids?
Oh, Zombie and Snow White.
Nice.
Very cliche. Definitely not the number one, as you claimed, of your
The cow?
child.
It's a cute cow.
That may be, Franklin. That may be.
I had an interesting text message today from the Chehalis School District. Chehalis Middle School sent me a text message telling me, let me find it here.
About your delinquent child.
It was about my delinquent child. It said, "Attention, the Chehalis Middle School would like to encourage you to attend conferences today or Wednesday because your student is failing multiple classes."
Oh,
You're shaming him.
hi.
And then I got a follow-up text message 4 minutes later that said, "Attention, please disregard that last message."
You had to assume that, right? Because
like, there's no
he's
way.
a low-level genius.
Yeah, I
so
went to
smart.
conferences. He has straight A's.
Oh,
Except for a
what a
B plus in
relief.
math that he is being coerced to correct.
If he was to have multiple failing classes, would you still let him do the kids section?
No, I would shame him.
Publish.
Try harder.
They still do report cards,
Yeah,
like physical cards that you can open up and they're marked.
I don't think so.
Oh.
I think they're all like digital now.
I see.
You get an
Life's
email
just
with
passing
like
me by.
like a picture of a plus or a minus. it's all in emojis
You
now.
have kids.
I know.
That's a good point.
I don't get a report card. I don't know if public
don't
school
get-
is different.
You
So.
don't get Bauer's report card that just has reading and it's
No,
just a frowny face.
There's like assessments that
Pleasure to have
come,
in class.
and everything's. It's not ABC. You need it explained to you to know how the kid is doing.
Yeah, that's how it was.
By
when
you,
was
I mean
in
me.
elementary
I
school.
needed it
you have to go
explained
to school to learn
me.
how the boy is doing in
Kinda.
school and the girl.
Yes.
All right. Should we go to news?
Let's.
Firefighters are leaving the Goat Rocks fire as the rain has officially been declared season ending. Woo!
That's awesome.
I saw a picture of out there a few days ago, and like some of the same vantage points you guys were at. It's just white snow everywhere. So
It's awesome. I've
Cool.
been getting photos from residents as well that have had a little bit of snow up at the tops of the hills, and it's really great to see. I think it's a huge relief for everyone.
feels like there should have been some sort of ceremony, like a mission accomplished banner,
know, right?
perhaps.
Yeah.
With something that goes on as long as that, it's really hard to feel anything other than just like when it's
Yeah.
over, you know?
Yeah. All right. Next item: the Chronicle candidate debates were held in video format. How did it go?
I thought it went really well. We just did the county races, so we did sheriff, commissioner, assessor, and clerk. In the clerk category, only incumbent Scott Tinney agreed to come along. They're pretty basic. The one exception, I would say, the rules across the board, all the debates were 2 minutes per response, 2 minutes opening and closing statement, and then in the sheriff's race specifically, we really highlighted the fact that there were unlimited rebuttals. So if you watch that one, they really mixed it up, got into it. I think it stayed professional, but they were definitely,
Spirited.
spirited is the word. Yeah, that's what it was. So I'd suggest anybody who hasn't voted, go take a look at that.
I think it's probably pretty informative. I think they were successful in what they were meant to be, which is just more information, really.
Was that the debates where the sheriff candidates were asked who their biggest endorsement was?
Yes, that
Yes.
was one of the questions.
And Tracy Murphy said God, and Snaza said the people of Lewis County.
That's correct.
That is
They were
that is
both
correct.
incorrect.
No, those were their selections. Hey, that's their call. I was a little surprised that Murphy went that route and not because he has a lot of like interesting endorsements. Former sheriff,
Yeah, I think
command
we were.
staff.
I think we were all thinking like that they would bring up a person or something who was kind of emblematic of their views, but they both took it in a more philosophical way. But it does say something about them the way that they answered, and I think it's just as informative that way.
I don't know. I feel like no matter which one of them answered first, if I was the other one, I would have given like a Jim from the Office look and been like, well, I have a real endorsement to talk about, and then listed off a person people have met.
Well, you don't believe in God, Aaron, so.
Well, I don't believe
That's
in the
why-
people of Lewis County all the time either.
That's true. The other interesting thing to me about the sheriff's debate was the first question, and we asked them more than we did other races as well. I think we did 8, and the others got 4 or 5. But right off the bat, we just asked simply, would you like to address anything your opponent or their campaign has said about you? And in Tracy Murphy's case, he went for just hammering home the fact that he's not a Democrat. He's a Republican. He's always been a Republican. He didn't run it as an independent because it doesn't align with his views. He's been asked that question. And then Snaza used his opportunity to go head on with the allegation that he had misappropriated funds from a drug fund through the purchase of equipment and things. There's another newspaper in Lewis County that has come up on this podcast before, the Lewis County News. They published a front page story, accusing him of being under investigation for that matter. We didn't do a story on it because the state auditor told us it's just something that's going to come up in the regular audit, and it did not look too salacious to us. Those were probably the highlights of that one.
All right. Moving on to a matter that has nothing to do with what we just talked about. Sheriff's Office refers manslaughter and animal cruelty charges against suspects in Aaron Christensen's death. This is obviously a heavier story than we usually discuss on here, and it's definitely a tragic one. I only bring it up because there's a lot of questions about how the investigation has been or is being conducted. Chief among them, why it's taken 2 months for anything to happen on this. The sheriff's office report said 2 individuals heard growling noises and saw the eyes of a wild animal, so they shot at it. Then these 2 people found a deceased male and a dog and continued to hike and spend the night in the woods.
And just a little background. This happened like mid-August, and Aaron Christensen, a Portland resident, was camping at Wallop Lake with friends and struck out on a solo hike. It appears at night when that encounter you just described happened. Mm-hmm. We got a death notice for Aaron Christensen maybe a week or two later. I could be off on that a little bit, but no details in the death notice. It was sent from a funeral home. It's just something we do in every edition. Yeah. They send them to us and we run when their service is going to be and such. Didn't hear anything after that. And then a family member of Aaron reached out to Emily Fitzgerald, our reporter, and was like, are you going to do something on the shooting? And that was the first time we had heard shooting. So we reached out to the sheriff's office and they didn't confirm a shooting. They confirmed that a dead person was found on the trail. And then nothing. We routinely reach out and ask nothing. And the family and friends, frankly, I think just got tired of waiting. They were, according to their account, being told not to reach out to the media. But after 2 months, they did. They put out a big statement. Emily wrote a really nice story, I thought, a couple of them actually, just highlighting the whole thing. And sheriff's office giving opportunity every time to comment. And after her story with the family statement, next day, I didn't even been the same day it went up, the coroner's office released that he died of a gunshot wound. And that was the first time that was confirmed. The next day after that, sheriff's office forwards charges to Prosecutor Meyer, who as of Friday was still considering what, if any, charges to file.
Yeah. Did you?
I thought that was a really good summary of it.
Yeah. I was just trying to sum it up.
No, go for it, Aaron.
So, and it sounds like from, the various stories I've read, primarily in the Chronicle, that the sheriff's office had an admission of sorts, or at least some sort of explanation, and it took 2 months for all this to happen.
We're trying to be, and I'm speaking from the newsroom. I know you're not really in the newsroom. That's not a shot. I'm just drawing a separation. You have a day job, whatever. We're going to be patient. We'll allow the family to use us as a messaging outlet when they want, and we're going to wait for the answers on that because speculating doesn't do any good for us. The investigation is going to come out eventually. Court documents will be part of it. If there are charges in a trial, we'll get even more information after that. But it is, I get why people are asking the questions. I get why you're concerned. I get why the family's concerned. We're just reporting it in real time. I am told on Saturday members of his family or possibly just his friends are going to be doing a little protesting over at the Sheriff's Office Law and Justice Center.
I saw a ton of the comments on this story on our Facebook, and one of them said something to the effect of like, really excited to hear the podcast take on this or something. And I just want to say, like, it's definitely not our place to politicize someone's death. And I really, really don't want to do that. The fact that this is so frustrating for this family is definitely pushing Emily's work on it. And I will say that I think she's playing a really important role in that. And I think that it's important that we're reporting on it. I just don't want to, I don't want to make this person's tragic and family's tragic loss about anything that it's not until we find out,
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it's important to keep this separate from political season. Like, no one outside of Lewis County, which is where Aaron Christensen was from, cares that it's political season here. Yeah. So when you start throwing grenades with an incomplete set of information, cool, be frustrated and all that, that's fine. But this cycle, specifically late in, the home stretch to the general election, we've seen things politicized that really shouldn't have been. I'll give one example, that we had a death at the Lewis County Jail in amount of time, just a shocking amount of time to me. It was getting dragged into a race, not by the campaign itself, but that doesn't really matter to people that are reading it online. If you're a member of his family or whatever, that's not what it's about. So,
yeah, and I hesitated to even put this on the show notes, but I think it bears discussing, and you can take the whole election piece of it out of it. And, the sheriff's office and the coroner's office need to provide a few answers as to why it took 2 months and why it came out the day after a story ran explaining all of it.
I agree with you 100%.
It's a very important story, and I think that we're trying to give it the importance that it deserves for sure. I think I think some people probably expect us to say speculative things, and we're going to try to refrain from that for now. But should there be answers on this? Absolutely. And we're pushing for those just as much as anyone.
Okay.
And it also, the case itself folds into another frustration we've had, and it was one of our questions during the sheriff's debate. Actually, we're not getting much information from the sheriff's office without asking. I would include the caveat: there's not been a time where we've asked for information and not gotten a response almost immediately or within a quick amount of time. But that is something that needs to improve. And that's something we told both candidates after the election. I mean, before would be even fine too, but we need to improve that outlet between not just the Chronicle and, law enforcement, the sheriff's office, but the law enforcement, the sheriff's office, and just the general public.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and along with that, I mean, it's kind of it hints at almost a public safety issue. It's a popular hiking trail. Wallop Lake is a popular spot, and if the sheriff's office responds to a call and finds a guy who has been shot to death out there, and no arrests have been made, like, you let people know?
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
I mean, that's kind of important.
I agree. I would encourage anyone who's unfamiliar with it to go to Cronline, search Aaron, Aron Christensen. That's SEN at the end, and just read all the coverage so far, because that's the best picture we have.
Yeah.
The one story where Emily interviewed his friends was really powerful, really interesting, a really good testimony, and she's still in touch with the family and friends. So, like I said, that's going to continue to be something we're following.
All right, moving on. Lewis County explains ballot security measures ahead of the general election. The story just outlines all the measures taken to provide a secure election and to combat the piles of conspiracy theorists who think that after all these years, voting by mail is all of a sudden now a scam.
Eric and I were laughing about, we'll make everybody feel secure with this press release from the government.
Mm-hmm. I like to imagine in our vast readership, there was at least one that read this and was like, "Oh, I didn't know they did all that."
Yeah, no,
that sounds
it's definitely
good.
cool transparency. I'm
No,
not against it.
I laughed for the same reason. I also think this is a perfect opportunity to highlight Tom Stanton and Larry Grove and the crew over at the Lewis County Auditor's Office, and specifically mention Stanton as a 2-time finalist for Best of Lewis County non-elected official.
Yeah.
And
good work over there.
Yeah, no, they're doing fantastic work over there. I think if anyone has concerns, they would be relieved in short order by just a short conversation with either of those or anyone over in the elections office, because they run a tight ship.
I've been thinking a lot about how, a couple of years ago, somebody asked you what you do for a job and you say you work for the county auditor. It's like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. And now it's like a big deal. And his work is really which of course it's always been, but it's especially now this really important part of safeguarding our democracy. And anyways, we're very thankful for them.
Yeah, I agree. And if you've met anybody that works over there, you're not going to meet them and be like, oh, so just now you're bumping up security. They're very much like creatures of habit and routine.
Yeah, and we've said it a million times. Elected auditor Larry Grove runs a tight ship, and I say that with an exclamation point on the end. I think if anybody who's ever worked with him heard someone suggest even that there was even a tiny amount of malfeasance going on over there, they would laugh in that person's face, because it's laughable.
All right, our next story. Lewis County commissioners ban homeless camps on county land. Finally, someone stepped forward and decided to fix housing inequality by criminalizing homelessness. Thank you, commissioners. You did it.
I'm letting you go until you hit a logical pause.
Many people at this meeting cited the work of Gather Church as having a negative impact on the issue, with some of the harshest of those critics saying the organization was catering encampments. Others implied the church was to blame for the negative effects of homelessness in Lewis County. That's akin to saying people would be healthier if it weren't for those goddamn doctors. My question, who is going to pay for all this work? It sounds pretty expensive.
You're not the only one asking.
The answer, as Isabel hinted, they don't know. Sean Swope, who has made his political bones with this one issue, said the county would seek grants from the Department of Ecology and said, quote, "The alternative is we do nothing. That's actually not the only alternative," as I'm sure some people in the meeting mentioned. Do we know when the county shelter they decided to build so they could legally do all of this? When's that going to be up and running?
I think that I say in the story.
I'm just letting him go.
No,
I don't want to be accused of stopping him, Mid-flow, so to speak.
No, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be like the night-by-night shelter at the Salvation Army runs for whenever the next one opens, and I think they're trying to open the other one in like spring, just as early as they can in 2023 is what I remember.
Yeah, it just says first half of 2023.
So we can assume Swope has a massive countdown clock and will be standing outside the first encampment he finds. And the second it ticks over, we'll run in and start pushing people out.
No, you're missing the fact that they've opened up the night-by-night shelter by contracting the Salvation Army, despite like arguments that it's not built for such a facility. Did you read that part?
Yeah, I did.
So they have
Just choosing to ignore it.
so they have places for them to go, and as like Mija Hanlon said a couple meetings ago, which I can't even recall the number of stories I've written about this at this point, but she was like, yeah, if they don't want to go there, there's not a lot of options. Basically, don't have one.
Which county department is going to be in charge of clearing the camps?
So it would be law enforcement, and then there would be one dedicated person whose job it is to make an assessment on the situation, and I would guess that's a public health official. I don't know.
I was to understand law enforcement was severely understaffed, and we're just going to add this onto their plate. Interesting. Sounds problematic. It almost sounds like, and I may be going out on a big limb here, that maybe this wasn't thought all the way through from top to bottom. And maybe the whole point of this is to just not have to look at the homeless people anymore.
I know how you feel, Aaron, because you've let us all know how you feel countless times.
Well,
I am not here to defend the ordinance or anything like that, but having given it a lot of thought and having read Isabel's coverage, which has been very comprehensive.
Despite comments saying it's propaganda.
Right. For me, it's the status quo is not okay. Like, I don't think it is okay to let people sit there and live like that. Like, I really, really don't.
Yeah,
and
I don't either.
I also think that if you don't do something, it will spin out of control. I'm not saying that this is 100% the right way, but I think it would spin out of control. I don't think the camp is going to get smaller, and I don't think it would remain, we're talking Blakesley Junction, the only camp in town if there's no action. I also see other cities, far more liberal cities in counties that are going in similar directions, Portland being one of them. We've done, not we society have done the experiment where you let a camp stay, you let it get bigger, then other camps pop up, and then residents begin losing their rights as well, or having their rights infringed upon. So I think something absolutely needs to be done. I think that the sudden pivot by not just Lewis County, which maybe is going a little farther, but by other counties and cities shows that they're trying something different. And I don't think cruelty is part of it. I don't think looking at homeless people is part of it. I think that some draw a direct line between homeless encampments and crime, destruction of property, litter, drug overdoses. I don't think those are imagined. So I understand why the county would want to do something.
Why the animosity for Gather Church? Like, it's still...
Oh, I've spoken on that. I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah, it still boggles the mind that they have a resource there who are constantly working with unhoused people and trying to be part of the solution. And at every turn, they're just turning them away and being like, actually, we're just going to make it illegal and we're going to clear them out.
I want to say this from the perspective of someone who's grown up in two different faith communities. And most of the people who spoke, not most of the people, but a lot of the people who spoke at this hearing when this ordinance was put in place were related to a church of some kind, were a pastor or congregant, whatever, and they spoke about that. And they talked about how government should exist to give a hand up, not a handout. That was kind of the classic term used. As someone who's of Christian faith, I guess, like I would say working with homeless people or people who are suffering from substance abuse disorders, that's definitely like the hardest of work. And as I've heard Cole Meckel from Gather Church say, it's like, if you're getting into it because you think you're going to fix people, you shouldn't be in it, because probably a lot of the people that you work with aren't going to get better. It's frustrating. It's like endlessly frustrating. And when you put yourself out to do this kind of work over and over and over again, which so many churches in this community do, and nothing changes, of course, it's going to bring up all of this resentment and animosity. And I'm not saying that their anger towards Gather is justified. I personally think that the work they're doing, I know the work they're doing is life-saving. And I think the more lives we can save, the better, always, 100%. But I do understand how tough this issue is, especially for people who are feeling like they have a hand in it, feeling like they have some role. So I think that has meant that Gather, because they're sort of on the front lines with this, has taken the major blow because it's someone to blame for people not getting better. And I wouldn't blame them for it, but I can see how people's minds would go there.
Okay. Thank you for that.
You took a photo, it hasn't been published yet, we will at some point, of Stoep and Gather, Pastor Colmeckle talking. Mm-hmm. And that immediately got me thinking, and I know it's like Pollyannish and pie in the sky or whatever, but it's like if they could somehow find a way for Gather to be part of this, I have a feeling like the communication lines between Gather Church and the people who are staying over at that camp are a hell of a lot stronger than the Lewis County Sheriff's Office and the people that are staying at that camp. If you're trying to get those people to do something, I'm guessing you're going to have a much better shot at it if you're dealing with someone or an agency or a church like Gather that's been helping them for years now.
If only there were some pipeline.
Like an advisory committee.
I think despite the feelings that this arises in everyone who talks about it, the really important thing is that Stirring the Pot has brought all of these people out to give their perspectives, has made us talk about it on podcast after podcast, has spurred these articles. And I'm not saying that always means the steps forward are good or even close to good or perfect or whatever, but it's movement, and we are getting the community to talk about this issue. That's important. And I do think probably most people, I would love to believe, care and want everyone to get better, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you hope so.
I agree.
You hope so.
Sean Stoep also threw out his magic $22 million number at some point during this meeting, even though it's been explained that the majority of that money went to keep people from becoming homeless during the pandemic rather than actually combating homelessness.
You know,
anyway.
it's another, I'm not going to dive into it because, to be honest, I didn't read the whole story. But I shared a Columbian story on cronline.com today that definitely fits in this conversation. It was Governor Inslee visiting a camp that they have down there. I can't even find it now, so it's great of me. But this wasn't a camp. They'd set up kind of a housing community. I think it's called a Safe something. And the model there was to provide these kind of like miniature housing units for each of them, and they were heralding it as a great success. It's called the Stay Safe site in Vancouver. And so this is a completely different approach, and the reason I think it fits with this is Inslee was framing this as the model that the rest of the state should follow. It has 20 small modular pallet shelters that can house up to 40 people experiencing homelessness. It is staffed 24/7 by an on-site nonprofit operator, and it has sanitation services, portable toilets, hand washing stations, meeting spaces, and a communal kitchen area. And I think the supporters of our local ordinance would look at that and say, yeah, that's what you would do if you were trying to attract more homeless people to your community. But it's worth reading if you're interested in the topic.
Okay.
I want to say one more thing, too. I got a lot of people who thought this story was good and a lot of people who thought it was bad. I think it's my role to cover the government as it happens and to say what the majority of voices from Lewis County said at this kind of hearing. That does not mean that we will not cover the effects of this ordinance in the future. It doesn't mean that we won't have more coverage on when things are going well or things are going bad. The only thing that this was meant to do was talk about the hearing and it being passed. And I think that even then I included other perspectives in it, but clearly that's not how some people felt.
That's always going to be.
I actually wanted you to boil down the cause, effects, and future effects of the entire issue and write it into a story that is no longer than 500 words.
Yeah, I'll try that next time.
Next news item, home purchase approved for permanent use by Lewis County Drug Court. Sounds like a good move. It's a house on Washington Ave in Chehalis. They've been renting for 3 years. The house costs $460,000 with a little more for due diligence and whatnot, and the county thinks they'll be able to get grants to cover it. So let's take that $22 million number and make it an even 22.5.
There we go.
That's what it'll be next time it comes up.
One of the things that I wanted to throw in here, because I didn't get it into the story before deadline, was Commissioner Swope talks about Gather just briefly in this story, and he called me and let me know that they worked with them to buy this house from Gather, because that's who they were renting it from. And he remarked, as I'm sure we're all aware, that a lot of people, once they find out the government is buying something, will jack up the price a ton. They didn't do that. They really wanted to support this drug court program, and I think that's awesome. So,
man, if I were Gather and the county was calling about...
Wait, did I say Gather?
It's Reliable Enterprises.
I said
Reliable.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Reliable.
meant to say Reliable Enterprises. I'm so
Okay, that
sorry.
makes
I was sitting here thinking, why the hell didn't that make the story?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I
you're
meant to
good.
say, I'm so sorry. That's a
Reliable Enterprises, though, did not try to fleece the government. and
Reliable.
We appreciate that.
I'm sorry.
Lewis County Drug Court has to be one of the most successful.
It's always a success story.
Yeah, I love following them. If you don't follow them on Facebook, you should, because they always show photos from graduation of graduates getting their plaques and honors in front of their family. And sometimes I know the person, and it's that's very cool to know that they're on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Next item, Lewis County Animal Shelter has been at capacity for months. Too many cats. Go get one if you want a cat.
Go get a cat.
End of story.
That's pretty
Anything
much
else?
it.
The cat's free?
Well, I don't know. If you want a free cat, just go find one.
Good point.
Aaron, did you go to Tiffany Smiley's appearance on Sunday?
Smiley, more like frowny. No, I did not.
I was just curious. I'm looking at all the news items you didn't include. You left a lot of meat on the bone this week.
What do you got? Roll them out there. Let's discuss.
Some of them are since just shortly, today. I mean, Brandon Hansen, friend of the podcast, former Chronicle sports reporter, wrote, WDFW records cougar attacks on wolves, 4 confirmed since 2013. And I thought that was a fun story. It was very low effort, just press release rewrite, I think. But yeah, cougars and wolves fighting. I'll pay
Hell
for that. Yeah.
Sounds like Jordan Nayland's living room.
I feel like you could, you could make some money off those fights. Find a way to.
Yeah.
I did go to the Tiffany Smiley thing on Sunday, and it was raining, and the whole time I was just thinking, boy, I wish I had a roof over my head.
Wow.
So good.
What number would you call if you
so
wanted a
good.
roof over your head?
I would call the roof doctor at
736-0246. It's in huge letters right on the side of the freeway in Chehalis, where you're from.
exactly. And I know that if I did call that, they would give me a free estimate on my roof, and they would even take house calls, which I don't know how else they would do it.
Well, the
And-
Roof Doctor is a family-owned roofing company since 1959.
They don't just build roofs either. I don't know if you guys knew that. I learned it recently. They also clean roofs, and that's
you learn that
a
because I
service
told you?
that you really need. Emergency roof services. If you got a hole in your roof, they'll fix that too.
We have that. We have an emergency here at the Chronicle.
Every now and then.
Our roof
We
is
have garbage
perfect
cans.
and fine, and there's
We have
nothing
garbage
wrong with
cans.
it. Those garbage cans spread all around the office collecting water are for our garden in the back that you don't know about.
We're not
And
collecting
here's-
rainwater.
And here's a review from our friend Steve and Christy J.
Oh, that's way too long. Do not read that.
Amazing. We can't enough good things about how Shane and Chris took control of a
We
complex
can't enough good things.
re-roofing gutters. It was a really long review, and they had great things to say.
Look at you guys just reviewing the review.
Isabel, that was impressive.
Thanks.
That
I
was
try.
impressive.
Any other news items that I left off the...
I have one that I put in sirens just because there wasn't anything in there, but it's definitely also news. But do you want to wait for it? It's to do with the Karma the dog thing.
we can save it for sirens.
All right.
All right, and with that, we're going to take a quick break.
Hi, this is Jasek from Summit Funding. Here's what a recent client is saying about us.
Hi, this is Chad Taylor. Have you been thinking about purchasing or refinancing your current home? The team at Summit Funding is the best in class. Looking for a conventional FHA, VA, USDA, jumbo, or even a reverse mortgage? Trust the team at Summit Funding. Coralie and I did, and we couldn't be happier.
Thank you to all of our past clients. If you have any questions, give us a call at 360-330-4037.
We're back with Tales from the Takes page. First up, we've got a column from Brian Mitke. He wrote about the fires, things that were on fire last week.
Yeah, it was part 2.
And this week he talked about the responses he got. And he discusses them.
Yeah, Mitke knows how to get mileage out of a column. If he writes one and immediately comes up with a good follow, he does that. And I'm just happy to have him back writing regularly for us. He took a week or 2 off, and Mitke is a beloved columnist. So
yeah, he does a good job with it. He's got his lane, and he rides it well. He also mentioned that people should give blood, and I agree. You should give blood.
Oh, gosh. You go on your high horse again. If you didn't notice your favorite columnist on the day in which they are normally published, I'm talking to all you Julie McDonald and Bill Moeller fans out there, it's because our letters, we're just getting so many election letters, and I feel like we need to get those in, because if I don't get one candidate's in, but I get another candidate's in, I feel like that's not very fair. So it'll all go back to normal after the election, but it's a game day decision on deadline on what column's going to run. Letters get the go ahead.
Yeah. Do you want to discuss any letters?
I know you do. You've had like 60 letters. I was just commenting on this in the past week, and one of them is on the Tales from the Takes page. Go on, Aaron. What is it?
A guy named Destin Denniston wrote a letter titled "Swope has disparaged my condition." This is a formerly homeless and now disabled veteran writing in, saying, "Swope's approach, which I will refer to henceforth as Hoovervilliany, deserves swift and sure denouncement, if not reprimand. If we follow his lead, stray dogs will be treated more humanely and have more rights than our fellow citizens in Lewis County. I hope we will hold elected officials accountable to a higher standard."
Cool.
Yeah,
it was a good letter.
It was cool.
I appreciate the letter. I was fine with having or I should say, I enjoyed getting letters that are not election related. Not that I don't like those, but most of them have been election related in the past couple of months. And I was just thinking, Isabel, you read all the news and opinion. Who do you think are our top letter to the editor candidates? And I'll tell you if you are correct.
A few have come from Marty Ansley.
No. The candidate that has received the most on their behalf.
Sorry. I think Tracy Murphy has had the most.
It's real close. Tracy Murphy, Harry Bagwanden,
and Kevin Emerson.
Kevin Emerson had a big cluster of them that came out at once. They were all sent in. And Glusenkamp Perez for Congress has gotten quite a few, both that have been published and that are slated to be published.
We should trend them after election results and see who if winning or losing candidates had more letter writers.
Correlation.
Yeah.
There's so much that goes into an election. I know letters to the editors are a small part of it, but
yeah.
I don't know. I appreciate anyone who takes the time to write a letter, because I think I get a lot more, or not as much lately, but phone calls from people upset about things, and I'll say, hey, write a letter, and we'll run it, and I'll never get a letter 9 times out of 10 because it takes effort. So shows you care enough to try to convince your fellow voters of something.
Do you think you're over more letters in this election than in previous elections?
It's hard to say. We get a lot every election, but yeah, I just say it's hard to say. It's up there for sure, this election.
I feel like there's been more just based off a contested sheriff's race, a serious contested sheriff's race.
I think the glitches on our website holding a couple back until we publish them all at once also gives the appearance of there being more, because we had a couple papers where there were several pages of letters, whereas usually it'd be a little bit more spread out.
Yeah, the glitch being there was our website provider was collecting the forms but not giving them to us. We got them all in one document, and Isabel's right. I think that probably has an effect on it.
So Kyle was hoarding letters himself personally.
He wanted to read them all first. But if you have a letter, letters at cronline.com, and the last day to get them in, really, if you want them to count, is going to be Saturday's edition. So I would need those on Thursday, early Friday.
Good to know.
I'll put the remainder in the Tuesday paper, and that'll be out Tuesday morning. But
Better
that's
start
election
writing
day.
my letters.
I said candidates too. Last election, we changed the policy actually when the Taylors purchased the company that candidates are allowed one letter that they can write about themselves if they want, 500 words.
I don't think
per
we've had
election
one
cycle.
yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
Yeah. So candidates, listen up.
If you want.
Write your
One letter, everyone knows the rules.
You get your one letter.
That's pretty great.
All right. People's Champion of the Week. We've got several nominees. Nice to see. Maritza Bravo, who joined the Centralia School Board. She graduated from Centralia High School in 2015, but she's active in school events and school sports due to a younger sibling still attending the high school. She works as a victim and witness coordinator for the prosecutor's office. She's done that since October of last year. She also previously worked as a civil paralegal for the prosecutor's office and as a deputy clerk for the clerk's office. So congratulations, Maritza Bravo.
I think she described herself as still being a full-time student as well, but that this was something she knew she could bring on. So yeah, no, that's a good one.
Yeah. We've also got Sue Kennedy, Lewis County water specialist, who is retiring after 29 years of life-saving work. She works for Lewis County Public Health. And shout out, Sue. Did you write that note in there?
Yeah. I said she's the reason that Boys for Water customers knew the morning of the flood in 2007 not to drink their water, as if they couldn't tell from the smell or color.
It was really cool to read about that
Yeah.
because I was out reporting. That was a part of my beat was the water issue in Boysford at the time. So I was
Yeah.
out there literally knocking on the Boysford Water office door and trying to get some answers and, where they were showing up to pick up bottled water. So it was kind of kind of surreal to imagine the other side of that at the same time.
It was cool for me to hear that as well because I am a Boys for Water customer and I remember the months of boiling and bottled water and whatnot. And I wasn't, since it was a while ago, I went to confirm how long it had been, and then I found your article on the water being restored.
Oh, boy.
And so yeah, it was cool. It kind of came full circle for me.
And our third nominee is I5 Auto Group's Heidi Pell, who's been nominated for the Time Dealer of the Year Award. She's one of 48 dealer nominees from across the country. She'll be honored at the 106th Annual National Automobile Dealers Association show in Dallas, Texas on January 27th, 2023. They also gave away the Bronco, right, Franklin?
Yeah, they gave away the Bronco. The guy came and picked up the vehicle today.
Who won
was
it?
ecstatic. Andrew Tessier.
Raymond.
Really?
Yep, from Raymond. They sold 9,700 tickets. So altogether, they raised $97,000 for any organization
Awesome.
that sold tickets.
Didn't the winner
pretty good.
think it was a scam when he got the phone call?
Yeah, he got the call. He got the call, and he's like, please don't call me back. So they sent him a picture of the Bronco. They sent him a picture of the stands because they gave it
great.
away at the Swamp Cup. And
Yeah.
he finally believed him.
That's
Finally
super cool.
believed the people, okay, I did win a car.
It is. And, Pels and I5 Toyota, they do that. Like, I covered sports for a number of years, and they have always been very good about, like,
What?
supporting local, surprise, supporting, like, local athletic programs.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, they're really big about giving stuff back to the community and things like that. And
If you ever
good for them.
want
Yeah.
like really good life advice, just listen to Robert Pell talk about sports. Just such a wise kid.
It's a milestone year on the car, too, that marked $1 million raised
Yeah,
since this
total
started
funds raised, $1
13 years ago
million,
to
yep.
community groups that sell the tickets and then they're able to keep the money. And then the award, just as a final note, I wrote up this press release and I say that very lightly because it's just a lightly edited press release. But there are 16,000 dealers nationwide and only 48 are finalists for this, and she's the Washington rep. So it is a prestigious award for sure, just to be nominated.
All right, so who's people's champ?
It's Heidi Pell.
I got Sue Kennedy because it's a period on the end of a career and not like a highlight on an ongoing career. That's my reasoning. And Maritza Bravo is a great nominee as well, but let's let her do the job and get into the position first.
I've got Maritza Bravo because I want a hero on the school board.
Looks like we
All
got
right,
three
I have the
people.
deciding vote, and I choose Sue Kennedy because I've been personally saved by her work from possibly E. coli.
Yeah.
Were you just like...
Heidi will be back in here.
No, you could
2007
tell.
drinking a glass of brown
You-
water. Wait a minute.
No, you could definitely tell as soon as it came out of the tap that it was
just
not right.
I just imagine it's just like a cup of mud and you taste it and you're like, tastes off.
And then I get
It's
a
just
phone call
thick
and I like
mud.
freeze in real time and spill the water. Yeah.
All right, Sirens Banger of the Week. It's now time for Isabel's owner of Karma, the dangerous dog, facing charges for criminal assistance, harassment in Lewis County Superior Court.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, you can go to town on this one.
So, this is a follow up on the story about Karma the dog, which we also talked about on the podcast. But a Chehalis woman is facing charges of rendering criminal assistance in the second degree and harassment after an alleged incident where a minor in her care harassed and killed a cat, and a second where she posted a banner facing her neighbor's property that read, "Payback is a bitch," according to court documents here. And I'm not trying to be insensitive, but come on, really missed the opportunity to say Karma's a bitch, right? Sorry. Anyways, then
That's pretty good.
yeah, so this is about Rebecca Nichols. She was, like I just said, at the center of the story about Karma, who was labeled a dangerous dog by the Lewis County Dangerous Animal Designation Board, was then euthanized after Nichols failed to comply with rules to keep her. Initially, due to Nichols' advanced age, recent status as a widow, and the fact that the dog was involved in incidents where the previous owner said she was prompted to be involved in them by a more aggressive dog who was her companion, the county was at first lenient with Nichols about these rules, but then after a neighbor called to report that a child in Nichols' care had put a cat on a leash and flung it around until its death, the leniency with Nichols quickly ended. She lost possession of the dog, and then within the weeks following, charges were filed against her. And there will likely be a hearing on this case in 3 to 4 weeks. She has been summoned to court.
Was it summonsed or summoned?
I think both are correct. I looked it up, but I think typically we do summonsed just because that's what they had
It's
in
a
court
summons.
document.
Yeah.
Court documents, yeah. I don't know. It's either one.
Facebook comments of the week. I have only one, and it comes from longtime listener Bill Saran. This was on a story about a cornhole tournament to raise funds for something. Comment is, cornholing meant a whole different thing in the last century.
It's not the first time that's come up.
So ambiguous.
The older generation
Is it?
is quite confused.
Very confused.
And with that,
Hold on. Since you mentioned Bill, I want to say thank you because I saw in a comment, and we've talked about this before, we're getting, there's a bot farm that is just targeting
Oh, man.
our Facebook page, and I, every single day, have to go through multiple times and delete all these people saying how they've made all this money from home, and here's how you can too. Click this
Wait, how much?
nefarious
How much
link.
money?
It changes every time.
One lady said
But
15,000.
Bill tried to rally the commenters and was like, everyone, please highlight these as spam every time that you see them. It's something to the effect of we need to help the Chronicle.
Yeah, that's much appreciated.
And I'm not even making light of it, as it's like draining to go through and
Yep.
report and delete those all. And to see a kind-hearted reader try to get others to help us with it was very, very, very appreciated.
It's especially draining because then we read other comments. that are
Yeah,
on the
and you
story.
go down the feed, deleting them all, and then on your way back up, there's already a replacement for the one that you have banned and deleted. So
As
I don't
much as
know.
it probably
They're
shouldn't.
infinite.
Those comments do get to me. They hurt my feelings big time. So
No, you got to learn, like I think I said last week, you got to treat it like one of those 3D posters on the wall where you relax your eyes and everything blurs out. I do that, and I can recognize the size and link on the bad troll ones, and so I'm able to do that and get out before I see anything.
I do that, but I can recognize the color scheme of the profile photos of people I know who are asshole regular commenters. Just be like, oh well, he has nothing good to say.
I've been deleting quite a few of those too. So there's if you're getting
never
at them,
ends.
there's quite a few people deleting those. But I have been a little curious if I could actually make 15 grand work from home.
let's try it.
The
Yeah,
link,
go
man.
click the
Should
link.
do a story and see if it works.
There was also a lot of good comments on some sports posts on there was a photo of Napavine holding up a sign before their game with Cascade Christian, the football team last weekend. No, not Cascade Christian.
Yep.
Was it? That was them? Yeah, not Cedar Park. Something about like search Google and couldn't find competition, and people were weighing in about how that was a shitty thing to say. I disagree. I thought it was hilarious. And then there was a number of comments on the Swamp Cup football game because it was 28-0 Chehalis in the first quarter. Isabel, would you like to defend your Bearcats?
No.
Okay.
I'm kind of rooting for Centralia in that game now because they're the underdog. You know what I mean? And
See, I like that as a fan in all sports. It's a fault because I'll even be like, if say the Mariners were like a 100-win team, and I will find myself being like, come on, come on, you can.
That's
do
why
it.
the Seahawks are so much fun this year because everybody's like,
best
they're going to
team
be.
ever.
Do you want to go off, King?
No, they're so fun to watch. The Hawks are just so fun this
Every time
year.
they win, I get a message from Schwartz. Remember before the season when you said they were going to suck and I said they're going to be the greatest team in the history of the world?
My exact words before I changed them under increase, what did I call? Oh, gaslighting. You started gaslighting me. I said they are going to finish 10-7, and I said that right after the Russell Wilson trade. Granted, I didn't believe myself, but they're just fun to watch.
They are. Their
agree.
defense is so much fun to watch.
Gino, are you kidding me? Third best quarterback rated in the NFL. Who saw that coming?
The one thing this is edging into sports sub territory, but the thing about Geno Smith that I love is everybody's like, yeah, everybody slept on Geno, but the Seahawks believed in him. They slept on him too. He was a backup.
Yeah.
There was a quarterback competition with Drew Lock, who sucks. Come on.
Speaking of gaslighting, if you would like to see the play that was the originating work that made that word a thing, it will be playing at the